As you know, it is a choir day. Choir day. Yes, it is choir day, and we try to bring all the choirs we can. I just want to remind you of every Monday. It's called Strictly Canadian with Lady J. So you get all the Canadian choirs, soloists, groups, you name it. So you don't want to miss that on a Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. every Monday. It's called Strictly Canadian. So tune into that. Today, again, at 12 noon, it's what we call goodies. I don't believe I was gonna about to make myself sound silly. Oldies but goodies. Am I right with that? I don't believe I'm messing up. Gospel goodies. There you go. Gospel goodies. Goodies came out of my mouth. Gospel goodies at 12 noon. That's Thursdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 noon to 2 p.m. You don't want to miss the Princess Player. You got to check it out as well. All right. Princess Player every Tuesday. So today being Tuesday, and I tell myself, today I'm going to remember at 12 noon. Princess Player, gospel goodies, going back way, way back to all the oldies and all the nice good gold gospel songs that go to Andre Crouch, Dottie Peoples. She goes all the way back. So, yeah, and she's good at it too. So, you don't want to miss that today at 12 noon. So, check it out. Check it out. But right at this moment, I just want to bring the man of the hour, none other than Pastor Colin Edghill, into the picture here. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, praise the Lord.
I did. I hope I didn't catch you off guard because I know you're normally coming in later. I just decided to bring you in a little earlier today and say, "Hey, man," because
No, no, no,
there's some
no.
stuff
I'm
that
here.
I really want to talk to you about today. I'm thinking, I saw something in the news. I'm like, really? That makes me a little bit nervous, but we'll talk about that later. Let's do the devotion first. So you know what? I'm gonna bring you in on the devotion. So hold on with me for a second as we get this all set up properly and give you the proper introduction.
You're about to listen to your morning devotions hosted by Pastor Colin Edghill of John Street Church of God from Georgetown, Guyana. A word to inspire, encourage, and uplift you. A word to motivate you to commit your life to the God who never fails. This is brought to you by Heavenly Eyes Beauty Salon, 10 Ben Street, Working Russ, Georgetown, Guyana, the second building going east. The phone number is 592-600-2832. That's 592-600-2832.
Praise the Lord. Good morning to you. I pray that you are in good health at the reaches of my voice. I found you strengthened in the Lord this morning, and so I just want to encourage you in the Lord from Isaiah, verses 31 of the 40th chapter. Isaiah 40, verse 31. And from this verse of scripture, you would not believe, I have derived three nuggets. And the first one from the text, it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Those who trust in the Lord with all their hearts, lean not on their own understanding. Those who in all their ways acknowledge him, they will find him as a present help in the time of trouble. They will find him as one who is able to do abundantly above all that they could think or ask of him. And so I want to encourage you this morning to put your hope in the Lord. If you're reading another translation like the King James Version, that verse will begin by saying, "Those who wait upon the Lord." Those whose foundation is in the Lord, those whose thoughts and mind is set on God. God gives the children, his children, the assurance that they will have renewed strength. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all yours and 10,000 beside. And so I don't know where the reaches of my voice finds you this morning, but wherever it finds you, you can get up from there and you can, as it were, soar like soar, as we would see, which is the second nugget from this text. that they that wait upon the Lord, they that hope in the Lord, they will not only have renewed strength, but they will be able to soar on wings like eagles. And that tells me they will be high flyers. In certain genres in the world, there are guys who are considered high flyers. When they roll in, I mean, everything is set for them. They have the best rooms, they have the best food, because they are considered high flyers, high rollers. When you are a high flyer, you show up at the airport. You don't have to join the long lines. You don't have to sit in the crowded spaces that are provided for commoners. When you are a high roller, a high flyer, you just present your credential and you're ushered in to a place of prominence and comfort and poshness, if you will. And that's what God says to you. If you are my child, and if you put your hope in me, if you put your confidence in me, your trust in me, then this is what's going to happen. You will be able to soar on wings like eagles. Hey, let that thought sink in into your spirit for a second. That God will renew your strength if your hope is in Him. God will cause you to be a high flyer. The eagle is of the as the lion is the king of the jungle. The eagle is the king of birds because of his ferocity and because of how ferocious an eagle can be and how wise is an eagle and how you see our eagle is not only strong but it also it articulates itself in ways that other birds wouldn't articulate, and that's why you will find eagles in certain places. You will not find eagle flying at a lower altitude or trajectory. They are always soaring above. God says, if you put your hope in me, that's how you'll be. First of all, you'll have renewed strength, and then you'll be able to soar as eagles. You're able to fly high as a high flyer. And the third nugget I got from the text is that God will give us stamina. The third nugget that we get from this verse of scripture found in Isaiah chapter 40 is that God will give us stamina. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. They that wait upon the Lord, they that hope in the Lord, they that trust in the Lord, they will be able to have a position in this life that others would have. This morning, I was reading as I was putting together a devotion for this morning in the book of Hebrews and in chapter 11, and it talks about how the saints of old, Isaac and Jacob and Samson and David and Barak and Rahab and all these individuals, how their lives were sustained and their faith was sustained because they were looking to a city for whom the architect and builder was God. And they did not enjoy the things that we now enjoy. They did not get to see the comeliness of Jesus and the beauty of Jesus and the works of Jesus as he walked the earth. But guess what? The Bible says they are eagerly anticipating that we would run our risk in such a way that they, in the final analysis, will be able to receive the crown that God has promised to them. And that is why I believe God is saying to Isaiah, tell my people they would have renewed strength if they put their hope in me. Tell my people they were able to mount and soar like eagles if they put their hope in me. Tell my people if they put their hope in me, they will have stamina. They will be able to run and not grow weary, and they'll be able to walk and not faint. And so I don't know what is your challenge today, but I know that if you would put your hope in the one who is able to keep the stars in the sky and cause the sun to raise in the east and set in the west and cause the moon to shine by night to give darkness to illuminate the darkness, then there's nothing that he can't do for you, in you and through you. And so I want to encourage you this morning to put your hope in the Lord so that you would have, first of all, renewed strength. You'll be able to soar as a high flyer, and thirdly, you will have stamina to run the race that is set before you. God richly bless you and enjoy the rest of your week.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Colin. It's always a pleasure. As I said, I'm excited of what you're going to be bringing today because we talk about high fly. When I think of the special guys, they walk in and yes, sir, can I help you, sir? Okay, sir, come over here,
Yeah,
sir. The high flyers.
yeah,
They walk into a room and everybody stop catering to you and start looking after these folks that are
yeah,
there and thinking, well, wait, I've been here waiting for the longest while. He just come in. But when you are indeed putting your trust in God, you do become a high flyer, and
yeah.
you can't get better than that. Talking about high flying, I saw in the news
Yeah.
that Venezuela had some high flying things over the nation of Guyana. Is that true or not? And what's going on there?
Well, it is true because our foreign affairs minister, that's what we call him around here, he had dispatched correspondence to his counterpart here via the ambassador to express their displeasure. But as you know, and as we know, we scarcely have a helicopter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So Guyana's it has an army, but um, I don't know what. As my mother would say, the army is a fifth wheel to a coach, eh? Or a fitted wheel to a coach. It it really can't do anything because it's outnumbered in all its ways. But I think too, you know, political. These things are political stunts that political leaders do to flex their muscle and to, try to, as it were, get some sort of traction because something, and these issues are used as a distraction as well,
Mm-hmm.
to for some leaders in things that are happening in their countries. Also, we have a new government, and this in the past 5 years, nothing like this took place. So perhaps the Venezuelan government is saying, is just flexing its muscle and putting on notice our current government that we really are no match for them
Mm-hmm.
militarily. We're no match for the Venezuelan army because the Venezuelan army probably have more men and women in it than Guyana has people in the whole country. Because as you know, Guyana only has 750,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that the Venezuelan army, if they don't have as much, they surely have a large percentage of that amount of people in their army alone. Um, and so, like I said, we don't even have a proper helicopter, much less to have something compatible to the plane that Venezuela was flying
Well,
over
well, I
our
could step in and
territory.
say this though, like David. David just had a slingshot compared to Goliath, so they can still fall. But
Yeah,
the thing that I look at though, because at the present on the world stage, and USA always seem to carry the lantern, so to speak, in
hmm
leading the way into things. And Venezuela is not such on friendly terms with the USA. I don't think the U.S. will sit by quietly. I don't think, not that they won't, or not that they probably may not even want to be bothered by that, but sit by quietly and see the Venezuelans or the Venezuelan government trying to do anything further. I know they already have the discussion about almost half of Guyana is theirs. And I know that discussion has been on the table for quite some time. Even when the late Forbes Burnham was alive, they had that discussion, and the one, not one blade of grass and all that kind of stuff came into play since back then. I remember being a teenager in the time when we used to hear this kind of stuff happening. So now it seems as though, even though Venezuela is flexing the muscle, I'm wondering to know if it's directed to Guyana, or they're just trying to say to the world stage, hey, we're ready for you guys, because it was said at one point that Venezuela don't have that kind of artillery.
Well, first of all, in the reference to David and Goliath scenario,
Mm.
David was a man after God's own heart.
True.
And I'm not so sure these jokers around here are anywhere close to um, before, much less after God's own heart. That's the reality
Yes,
because
true.
we have a secular government. Our,
Mm.
our president is a practicing Muslim.
And
You
his vice
know,
president is a Hindu, right?
well, I don't know what his vice president is, but because I've never seen him at the church. I've never seen him, attending church, mosque, or temple,
Mm.
or prime minister. I mean, who knows what he is besides, the prime minister, and so we have a nation that really is not really
God conscious?
developed. No, we have not developed as we ought to have developed
Mm.
for all our natural resources and for all the things that we have going for us, so that we become mendicants. We become beggars instead of lenders. We have become borrowers. When we consider all the resources that we have, because our problem as a nation has always been leadership in terms of um, leaders embracing, for example, say Singapore, that embraced a vision of developing their nation as a country. We have the misguided notion that one ethnic group is superior to the other ethnic group because one ethnic group had their genesis by slave ships and the other one had its genesis by indentured ship. But at the end of the day, whether it was a slave ship or an indentured ship, we all land here, and so what we ought to do is recognize that none of us really born here.
Mm.
Our navel string wasn't buried here. We were brought here,
Mm.
some by force, some willingly. And so at the end of the day, there should be unity. And that is one of the problems that we are facing as a nation. That we are so divided along ethnic lines and religious lines and all the other lines that we manufacture to keep ourselves the way we are. But at the end of the day, when as the saying goes, when the tide rises, all the ship rises.
Mm-hmm.
So if Venezuela attack Guyana and drop a bomb in the Essequibo coast, it's not Indian will die or not black will die
It's
or
everybody.
Chinese will die. It's Guyanese will die.
Like, yeah.
If they drop a bomb in the city, if they start a war, it's not Indian soldiers who have to go. It's not African soldiers who have to go, even though our armed forces is dominated by Africans. So to the large extent, if we were to go to war, it would be the predominantly African Guyanese who have to face the battle
Mm-hmm.
lines, because our army, while it is free to integrate and free to join, the Indian Guyanese, the reality is, don't join the army and have not joined the army from its inception in any vast amount. So here we are between, if you will, a rock and a hard place, because if Venezuela decided to, yes, we might get help from X, Y, or Z, including the United States, but by the time the United States gets here, the damage is already done, because we really don't have anything to withstand the slightest barrage of artillery that an army like the Venezuelan armed forces can unleash on Ghana.
Wow. When I first saw it, I thought to myself, what in the world is going on now? But as I said, I just think They want to send a message, and I don't think it's directed. It may seem that they're using Guyana as the pawn, but I don't think it's directed to Guyana because on the world stage they have a bigger fish to fry, and they want to be recognized as also as a super nation, if you put it that way. But they also have their own personal issues because most of their people are leaving Venezuela to come live in Guyana. That's the that's the weirdest thing, because quite recently I heard of the Spanish girl who was brutally raped by this guy in Guyana. They finally caught him, and it's amazing that he got away for so long doing the things that he did. But anyways, so it tells me that there's a lot, and from the little knowledge that I've heard, that there's a lot of Cubans and Venezuelans that are living in Guyana now as we speak. So
Yeah, some estimate the amount to be around 30, 40,000. I know
wow.
not. I couldn't care less because at the end of the day, Guyana has room for a lot of people from
Mm.
all over the world. We literally have the room. We have the space, we have the land, we have everything. The problem is, has always been, you know, or again, it goes back to our nation's leaders. They have not been able to harness Ghana's resources nor its potential outside of what they have garnered for themselves by various means or what have you. And there are some folks who really don't care whether or not Venezuela attack us. It's not a big deal to them because whether Venezuela attack us or not, they're going to be in the same position they're in right now. They're going to be better off.
Mm.
The people who are coming from Venezuela and Brazil and other places to Ghana are not necessarily people of means, but are people who are looking for a better life
Mm-hmm.
because where they are is detrimental to them. So at the end of the day, to all intents and purposes, you might have a few thousand, 10, 12,000 people or what have you coming from Venezuela, but those are not really people or Venezuelans who can come and build three high-rise buildings because they have the resources. They're more or less coming because they are at a stage in life where they're looking to elevate themselves. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, there are those who can come and do business and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, um, this issue with Venezuela has been a recurring one for eons now,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some leaders who you know just didn't bother with making a fuss about it, and then, like you said, for their own ulterior motives, they would they may be taunting the U.S. or trying to get the attention of somebody or whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, what is another war going to solve?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can sit together, you and I, around a table, around food and beverage, and solve an issue, how is war going to solve it? I mean, because
The minds of
when we
the
sit,
human minds, the human heart is so wicked and out of sort. I mean, I don't even think they consider wanting to solve anything. They just want to show that I have power, so let's do what we can do. Let's take it by
well, that
force.
that too. But again, you are living you're not living on an island. You're living in a world that you subscribe to certain protocols. For example, there's certain charters that nations subscribe to. For example, even though you have a war, you just can't kill an unarmed civilian, or you
Right.
can't kill an unarmed soldier. If you are in a war and you accost a opposing soldier and he puts up his hands, drop his weapon, puts up his hands, or comes towards you waving a white flag, the Geneva Convention rules of war says you have to, the most you can do with him is arrest him and incarcerate him. But even though you do that, you still have to be humane to him. A soldier from an opposing side waving a white flag cannot be executed or shot without, giving thought to the fact that he has surrendered, he has admitted defeat. So you have to, as a conqueror, exercise mercy. So at the end of the day, the world has ascribed to certain protocols and agendas to resolve issues. And so that's why I said, if you can't resolve it by, you know, sitting around a table eating and drinking, how are you going to resolve it by war? There have been, since the UN, the United Nations was formed, it was formed to stop wars. They have had more wars than they ever had before. So at the end of the day, what is going to profit us? What if we had sat down all those years ago and come to agreement as to how we were going to develop that area that is in contention? Where would we be today if we had just sat down and say, "Hey, man, listen, this stuff here, let's do something with it. You do something on your side, I do something on my side, or we can come together and do something for the whole thing, so it will benefit us." How much more, advancement we would not have had, and how much more we would not have been. That today, that instead of sending warplanes, we could be sending aid to each other. I could be sending rice and sugar or whatever the case might be to your country, and you could be sending X, Y, or Z back to my country. And we live in love and harmony because, naked we came into the world, and naked we're going to go out of it. So at the end of the day, all the fussing and fighting is just a waste of time and human resources, really.
Absolutely true. I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking. I mean, I'm no longer living in Guyana. I visit, I come, I enjoy, I leave, enjoy the sun, enjoy the fresh fish, the fruits, and the people. Leave and I come back. As you are living there and seeing the day-to-day activities, do you see, we say, the next 5, 10 years, any improvement coming to Guyana?
Um,
I know that's a hard question. I know that's a hard
well,
question, but
I, for
excuse me.
example, where I'm living is what we call a housing scheme. I don't know what you call it in North America,
Mm.
so that people could get a sense of what I'm talking about. But it's a community, and what it was a cane field, right, where cane was harvested and grown so that we could export sugar. Because of all the issues we are having, they have abandoned that, and they decided to give that land to citizens rather, as residents to build homes. And so it's a new area, and it was 2012 when the government housing department or ministry called and said, "Mr. Edghill, we are having this what they call a one shop, and you had an application and we are ready to give you a piece of land." And so I went and I got the piece of land. This is 2012. Since then, I built my home on that piece of land. This is 2021, which is almost 9 years later. Um, the roads, and I say all that to say that the roads that I have to come in and out, and other residents, because other persons have since come and build their homes, that have to come in. The holes are so big that any number of vehicles can fit in the hole in the road.
Wow.
And this has been going on for 5, 6, 7 years. So you ask me what kind of development I see or what kind of changes I see in the next 5 years. I'm not, as the older folks would say, I'm not holding my breath that much is going to change. Of course, they may pop in tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, and as we would say, do some slapdash business somewhere and fill up the holes or smooth it out or what have you. But Do I see them coming in 2 years from now, a year from now, and paving all the roads? No, sir. Because how can I get my road when in the first few months of this government taking the reins of government, they spent $100 million on new vehicles for themselves.
Wow.
This new budget, which was recently, well, it's not even passed as yet, it's now being debated. In that budget, they have another $100 million for new vehicles for themselves.
Wow.
So the point is, when is my road going? When is my community road going to be fixed? When they have in less than a year, they have attribute to themselves $200 million to buy new vehicles for themselves. And they're buying new vehicles not necessarily because something was wrong with the previous ones.
It's just to show
So
that
the
they can
point
fund
is,
it. Wow.
well, that too, and now we want our own things, whatever. But at the end of the day, the point is, when I came into this community, it should have had all those infrastructural works done, but it was never done. It was done to an extent, but it was not done to an extent where it would last, or the durability of it was, it was going to be 10, 20 years. It was just done so that it could look, my bishop wife has a thing. She tells us, she says, a little putty and a little paint will make a house look a lot like it ain't. And so that's what we're having.
Someone
Like
said
a woman is
someone said they stayed there in 2011. It was a beautiful road. They had beautiful the roads at the time were okay in 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they didn't last as long as a snowball in hell, as we would say, because if it was done properly, it would have been okay. Now, my question to you is, the community that you live in, is it a mixed community or is it predominantly African Guyanese, Afro Guyanese?
No, it's a mixed community because you can't. They're not going to have those kinds of. Of course, you might have one set of. You might have a larger percentage of one ethnic group as opposed to another, because remember too, it's a sort of gerrymandering as well when these folks put these communities together. They're deliberate in who they allot lots to, because it also will help their geography and of their constituencies. So you may have, for example, in my community, you may have a larger percent of the supporters of the current government, because the region in which we reside, which is Region 4, is predominantly more on one side than it is on the other side. And so what you may have is that the government of the day, who knows this, will give out the lands and the lots to people from areas where they are strong, so in areas where they're weak, so that so a lot of it is politics as well. I suppose they didn't know which side of the fence I was on, so at the end of the day, it really didn't matter.
So let me ask you. You said I'm trying to get direct in terms of, but then I recognize that there are two governments that are like what we call two main governments: the PPP,
two parties,
right? The two main parties. Sorry, PPP and the APNU.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
The PPP is predominantly Indo-Guyanese.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I also know they have Afro-Guyanese as part of the PPP, and I heard some names that they give them, but I'm not going to mention those names right now. They're not very pleasant. But so you have members of the Afro-Guyanese that are also part of the PPP that was given land in that area as well, as I'm assuming.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, too, there's nothing on the form of the application, rather, that asks you your political affiliation.
Affiliations, right?
But common sense would tell you certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense is to say, okay, for one party, people in this area, um, in the east, um, is a stronghold of the party in government.
Mm-hmm.
But area in the west is a stronghold of
Opposition
the
party.
opposition or the other party.
Mm-hmm.
So what any sensible government and politician would do is those people who are in the areas where they're already strong, they will take them out of there and put them in the other areas, so that eventually their support in the area where they're not strong in will
Increase,
will
yeah.
mushroom
Mm-hmm.
and grow and increase. So it's a lot of it has to do with politics, but the reality is Guyana is 83,000 square mile with 750,000 people. That means we have at best 12 persons per square mile in this country
Mm-hmm.
when you do the math. So the reality is, we have more land um, than we have people to inhabit the land. We have enough land that every single Guyanese could get a little piece, you know. But
I recently heard something, and um, I didn't fully attempt that they were encouraging Guyanese in the diaspora to come back home and actually, if you want, purchase land in form of developing homes and whatever home, or even if it's businesses. And this was, I think, was 2019 is when I first heard it, and this is before the pandemic hit and so forth. Um, but a friend of mine told me when he checked, he was turned down, and that's because he was Afro Guyanese, right? No, that's not 20.
possible.
I heard it in 2019. It partly was happening before the government that is now out, the APNU, before they came up,
Yes,
before they were
yes,
in. That's what was happening, and he
yes.
told me when he had tried then, he was turned down. He says now that the APNU is in, he wanted to try it to see if he can get in, and unfortunately, everything that turns up to be that the APNU party was no longer there. So he recognized. He said, "Boy, I don't think I can get it anymore." So I tell him, it says, if you have friends home, why not let your friends do it for you, so that you at least you can
Yeah.
get stuff operated on. And I heard there's a big long setup in trying to get things
Yeah,
organized.
the processes are tedious, lots of red tape you have to do, even though they want to do it. It is it's a lot of underhand, and so sometimes it's just easier to do something else. But the government, to encourage Guyanese who might want to at some point remigrate after they retire or whatever, I'd set aside certain parcels. But one of the deterrents to a lot of Guyanese overseas to getting that land as well had to do with the cost for it.
Hmm.
What the government was calling the prices for just the bare land, because like I said, that's where these lands are situated. There is no infrastructure. There are no roads and utilities. Everything is just there. It's just there.
Well,
So
I was offered I my grandniece mom, my grandniece grandmother, had sent some information to me, and I thought the house was pretty decent in terms of price, and I was like, wow, what's all 12, is it 12 million or something to that effect, 12 million and 20 million, which is equivalent to thousands for us. But the point is that she was saying, hey, you can buy these because they were already built. The land wasn't completely developed, but most of the houses were built. There wasn't any fencing or anything like that, and you can do further work there if you want to. But I realized even to that too seemed to be a tedious task, and even trying to obtain the property with buildings already there accept the fact that you're actually living there.
Yes. Well, again, that's how it was designed,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you are frustrated, and if other Guyanese in the diaspora are frustrated by the tediousness of the whole process, then somebody here, a friend, a crony, a family
Mm-hmm.
that is connected, could come in and, at the end of the day, they could say, well, the Guyanese don't want it because we put it out there, so we have to do something else. When the reality is they didn't have to do something else. All they had to do is streamline the process so that it would not be as tedious as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you have all the T's crossed, all the dots, all the I's dotted in a department of the Ministry of Housing, where a Guyanese from the diaspora who's desirous of buying a piece of land to build a home, to come back home and retire, can do it without leaving his chair.
Mm-hmm.
He could simply, um, access a portal somewhere and speak to somebody like I'm speaking to you. And I say, sir, this is, ma'am, this is what it is, and this is what you need to do. And, yeah, 2-3 months perhaps, and it's over with. Instead, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years before a simple process works itself out. So
There's a young
we
lady that
should be
was living in
frustrated.
French Guyana, and she had left Guyana for about 10 years. And I was talking to her. I didn't get to hear the final result of it, but her grandmother had died and left her land, and she was going
Mhm.
back home, back and forth to get things sorted out. But there was such a great stall in her getting the land. I don't know if she finally got it or not, because they're trying to say she's not living there, she's not a Guyanese, but she never did give up her citizenship, and she was out of in French Guiana because of work and school and everything else, and they tried their best to make sure that she cannot obtain the land. So up to this point, I haven't. I haven't spoken to her for like 2 years now, so I wasn't sure what transpired and what happened, if she did get the land or not. And I thought that was quite offsetting. It's a lot of underhandedness, that it seems to just want to take land from the Afro Guyanese and give it to the Indo Guyanese to make sure that they have a stronger economical system that is happening. And I remember years growing up in Guyana that they used to say, who have the more economical power is going to rule the land, and I think that was the objective in Guyana at that time. And it's sad that we have to be this way when we have on a coat of arms, one people, one nation, one destiny, six nations. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that will happen in any nation. That happens in any nation. The people with the economic power is the people who rule,
Mm-hmm.
because money buys everything,
True.
even life.
True.
It don't give you life, but it could buy life, because I could, if I have economic power, I can, I can put people out of my way. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you're living. Once you have power, you have power.
Wow, it's a sad thing. And I mean, okay, Guyana is in no place right now to be playing these kinds of cat and mouse games with each other. The reason being, we don't have a well established army to defend our land. We don't have, I don't even think we have a well established government to even on a political world stage to defend ourselves properly. Much of playing these cat and mouse games among ourselves, it's of no use, as you rightfully said. It takes us nowhere. It's useless. And then you have another country who's trying to come in and say, hey, half of the land is ours. We want it, and we're gonna flex our muscles, and we're gonna do everything we got to do. I also heard that they, at the present moment, they're at some meeting trying to discuss the world meeting, trying to discuss the rules and regulations of what is actually how Venezuela is supposed to be. But I don't think Venezuela cares. At this point, I don't think Venezuela really cares what they want to say, what Guyana want to say. They'll do what they want to do anyways because they can.
Well, in the International Court of Law, the Venezuelans have lost all the cases in relation to that, um, to that issue.
Mm.
So the international court has ruled in Guyana's favor that the land is indeed Guyana's land and is a part of Guyana, and Venezuela's claim to it is really null and void.
I'm
There
sorry, we got to
is
cut right here. Thank you once again to locking in to SPRLIVEFM.com. This is the Praise Life Morning Show. My name is Claremont, and we have Pastor Colin Edghill here with us as well. So thank you so much for locking in. Here's my closing remarks. It has come to that time when I must leave for today. Thank you for locking in to SPR Live FM for the Praise Life Morning Show. Also,